Cricketa Bobula Weldima Billy Na Jagingeriwa Cricketa Bobula Weldima Billy Na Jagingeriwa.
I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting, the Jindaburra people. Also pay my respects to the elders past and present and any other Indigenous people that may be in the room. Now, International Women's Day, their theme is Pledge for Parity, and I'll be speaking on those issues as I go along. Thanks, Alan. Thank you. Now, International Women's Day first emerged from the activities of labour movements at the turn of the 20th century in North America and across Europe. Since those early years, International Women's Day has assumed a new global dimension for women in developed and developing countries alike. The growing international women's movement, which has been strengthened by 4 global United Nations Women's Conferences, has helped make the commemoration a rallying point to build support for women's rights and participation in the political and economic arenas. Increasingly, International Women's Day is a time to reflect on the progress made, to call for change, and to celebrate acts of courage and determination by ordinary women who have played an extraordinary role in the history of their countries and communities. In 1909, the first National Women's Day was observed in the United States on the 28th of February. The Socialist Party of America designated this day in honour of the 1908 garment workers' strike in New York, where many women protested against the working conditions. In 1910, the Socialist International meeting in Copenhagen established a Women's Day. International in character, to honour the movement for women's rights and to build support for achieving universal suffrage for women. The proposal was greeted with unanimous approval by the conference of over 100 women from 17 countries, which included the first 3 women elected to the Finnish Parliament. In 1911, as a result of the Copenhagen Initiative, International Women's Day was marked for the first time, and that was on the 19th of March. And that was celebrated in Austria, Denmark, Germany and Switzerland, where more than 1 million women and men attended rallies. In addition to the right to vote and to hold public office, they demanded women's rights to work, to vocational training, and to an end to discrimination on the job. In 1913 to 1914, International Women's Day also became a mechanism for protesting World War I. As part of the peace movement, Russian women observed their first International Women's Day on the last Sunday in February. Elsewhere in Europe, on or around the 8th of March of the following year, women held rallies either to protest the war or to express solidarity with other activists. In 1917, against the backdrop of the war, women in Russia again chose to protest and strike for bread and peace. On the last Sunday in February, which actually fell on 8th of March on the Gregorian calendar, 4 days later the Tsar abdicated and the provisional government granted women the right to vote in Russia. In 1975, the United Nations began celebrating the International Women's Day on the 8th of March during International Women's Year. In 1977, in December, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution proclaiming a United Nations Day for Women's Rights and International Peace to be observed on any day of the year by member states in accordance with their historical and national traditions. And that then brings us up to the present time. So, having filled you in on the background and the historical aspect of International Women's Day, women across the world celebrate International Women's Day on this day. And as I said, the theme for this year is Pledge for Parity. So, having said that, I'll tell you my story as far as Quest for Parity is concerned. It was really interesting when I was a little girl, and like most little black kids, I was hospitalised a few times. And I remember distinctly when we looked back at recalling, and I was in hospital and one of my older sisters was in there at the same time. And I think I was the youngest of 7 and a bit sooky. So I cried and nearly drove them crazy. And I kept saying to them, if you just let me get into bed and have a cuddle up with Patsy, I'll be a good girl. But they didn't. And so why I wanted to do nursing, I'll never know. But anyway, I had wanted them to do nursing for as long as when I was going to school. And I was told by people, other Aboriginal people, well, you'll never get in anyway. And I said, and why is that? And they said, because you're black. And it's really interesting that many, and I didn't know this, many Aboriginal women were refused entry into nursing because they were black. And Walter O'Donoghue was one of these women in Adelaide, at the Royal Adelaide Hospital. Sadie Canning, the most wonderful, wonderful woman who's passed on, she was refused at the Royal Perth, and so she went to Melbourne, to the Bethesda Hospital in Melbourne, and did her training. But you know, the trailblazers before me really had it tough. And I thought I had it tough, but however, so I applied. I left school at 14 and applied to undertake my training at Royal Prince Alfred Hospital, which was like our local hospital in Sydney. And I thought, well, Mum and I went and were interviewed by the matron of the day, Miss Laurie, and joy of joys, I was accepted into nursing. And the most wonderful thing, my family brothers and sisters and parents were truly wonderful, and they all rallied to buy things for me. Nice undies, pyjamas, living in the nurses' homes, that I would say that I would be as good as anyone else. And they went without for me and made many sacrifices for which I'll be eternally grateful to my family. My eldest brother went to the races and had a good win. And at that stage he had 3 children, but he brought the money home to me to buy my textbooks. And I thought, how wonderful. And I've kept those textbooks all these years. So that was really wonderful. Well, I started my training on the 2nd of January, and I won't tell you what year that was. There are some things we like to keep secret, don't we? So, Mum and Dad couldn't be with me because one of my brothers was in hospital in Narangba with rheumatic fever, and they were with him. So my sister and brother-in-law took me. And there I was amongst 32 young, very young women, lined up outside the old army huts they were, where we lived in those days before they had nurses' homes, but because we were the lowest on the totem pole, they housed us in the old army huts down near the vet school at Sydney University. And I remember that day as clearly as if it were yesterday. And there I was, this little Aboriginal girl, standing out like a sore thumb amongst the others. But I must say, we all felt the same, I'm sure, like fish out of water. And for any of you who are nurses here, would know what it was like when the first day that you started your training. Quite frightening. But anyway, off we went, and we had 6 weeks, of PTS, preliminary training school it was, where we learned the basics of bed making, sponging patients, giving bedpans, emptying bedpans and urinals. And we had exams, of course, and I failed anatomy and physiology. And I was sent to matron. She was away, and the deputy matron spoke to me. She said, now, I'm not going to let your parents know about this. She said, you work hard now and pass the supplementary exam, which I did. But the tutor sister in my report, and I didn't see this for many years later, wrote on my report, this nurse is totally incapable of learning. I cried. I was devastated. A, to read that. B, that someone could write that against this young 17-year-old. If they thought, as one would in education, that you were struggling, they would see that you had some extra support. But no, we did tough. And you know, when I was training, the pain room became the probationers, as we were called, the pros, refuge. How many times we cried in the pan room, went outside to cry, when we were, I think sometimes, unjustly criticised by the ward sisters or the senior nurses. But however, you survive those things and you move on. Anyway, and I did move on and finish my training, and when people say, what was the, your best achievement? And my best achievement was really finishing my training. To achieve my dream of training to become a nurse. And whatever I've done since then really doesn't come up to that, because that was my goal. And as I say to students when I'm teaching, I said, you keep your eye on the prize. Anyway, so, finished my training and graduated and went off to do midwifery and graduated well from that, surprisingly, very well. But I focused on what I had to do. When I was talking at other reunions, and one of the girls said to me, we really thought that you and the labels was Miss Goody Two Shoes. And because I didn't go out. I didn't go out and have a wild time like a lot of young nurses do when they're away from home, off the leash, because it was too important to me, having been given this opportunity to spoil it. So, I didn't know they thought that about me. I just thought I had head down, bum up and doing what I was supposed to be doing. And went on to do other things. Listen to that. That's right. Yes. I'll just point out some things. When I finished my training and graduated, my family was so proud. It was wonderful. No one else had done this. And it was, I can't explain to you how good I felt in making them feel so good. Because in those days, life was pretty rough for Aboriginal people. My father went to war and fought in his country. When he came home, he wasn't allowed in the shops, he wasn't allowed in a pub where he could, if he was in uniform with other people, he could have a drink. And he wasn't allowed to go into the pub to have a beer. And not recognised as the wonderful contribution that he had made, and I just feel so sad that he had to be subject to this. And not only he, but so many Aboriginal men and women were subjected to this. So, when I graduated, and when I went on and I did my master's degree, and I did my degree, undergraduate degree, finished my training, and then went on and worked in areas and in cardiothoracic specialties and coronary care, and was charge nurse of cardiac unit at Wilkins Hospital, and I went back on staff. I used to think to myself, with the truth assistant, if you could see me now. And so that gave me a lot of comfort, I can tell you, that I went on to, when I looked at and did my master's thesis paper, I looked at why were there so few Aboriginal registered nurses in this country. But at that stage we made up 0.02% of the total registered nurse population of this country. And then I thought, there's no good talking about it and writing about it. We've got to do something about it. So, I started the Congress of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Nurses organisation, PATS, to encourage Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, young people, into nursing, to increase our numbers. And I'm really pleased that since I've retired, the PATS is still going, and that's our main brief. Their main brief is to increase the numbers of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander registered nurses in this country. And we're being successful, slowly, but we're getting it. So I'm really very pleased about that. Now I thought that perhaps you might have some questions or queries of me, if you wanted to say anything.
If anyone would like to ask a question, Alan, would you do the radio? Please, Alan. Oops. Sorry, Sal, we might be needing your attention.
Sally, can I ask you, did you ever run into that woman who said that you wouldn't be able to learn anything?
I did later on when I was back on staff, and you know, she barely acknowledged me.
I wonder why. Sally, would you tell us about your role in Canberra, please?
Which one was that, Beth? I was on various committees and organisations and advised the government on an advisory body to advise the government on Indigenous health issues. And that was really good and gratifying too. Plus the fact then for catching for more money for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander nurses, for scholarships, and we did that. And I must say, Tony Abbott was not the best health minister. That may surprise some of you. He wasn't. He was not terribly interested, certainly, in Indigenous health at that stage either. Yes.
It's all right. I can speak quite loudly.
She's only tiny.
What did you think then when Tony Abbott, towards the end of his career as Prime Minister, did that whole tour of Northern Territory going to Aboriginal settlements?
Well, I thought that was good. And I thought that obviously he's recognised the need to do something. And in later years, he was certainly much better than he was when he was a health minister and more open to issues. And I think it's really good now. Pardon me. That's the breakfast. Mick Dodson's there, and Linda Burney from New South Wales Parliament is going into the federal arena. And I think that that's really very good. And we have Nova Peris there. Slow, small steps, but better than no steps at all.
Sally, are there more Aboriginal nurses now? Oh, okay.
Yes, there are. And it's really good. But at the university that has really the most number of student Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander nurses is James Cook University. They did very well up there as far as their recruitment and retention.
Sally, are they going back to work in the communities up there? Oh, that's goodness me, I am rebuked. Sally, are they taking their talents and skills back to the communities?
Some of them are,
yes.
but I really also don't believe that we should just be educating Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to go and look after their own. They have the skills to go out into the wider community, the same as any other registered nurse is.
Are there any Aboriginal doctors, women doctors?
There are. There are. About the time that we formed CATSN, the doctors set up AIDA. That's the Australian Indigenous Doctors Association, and there are quite a number of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander doctors. Not as many as we would like, but there certainly are a lot more than there were. Copycats they were. We set the tone. Absolutely. But I just wanted to tell you a little bit of the story to say, as the theme is for parity, we've got a long way to go. We've made some significant steps, but we still have a very long way to go. And, you know, make no mistake that racism and discrimination is still alive and well in this country. Despite all the denials that there may be, that it is, you can ask any Aboriginal person that, whether they've been subjected to that, and they will tell you. Thank you.
Right now, Dave and I have very little time, so we want to give you this track before we lose transmission. Well, that artist's name lasted long, Peter. Oops, I meant Dynamic. Why do we have these names? Well, who would we be without appropriately catchy names? Probably David and Peter.